What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I have a very urgent message to talk about today, and we're going to talk about the debt ceiling. I'm going to show you a letter. This is from Treasury Secretary Yellen. She sent this to the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, last week, and he responded to this. I'll play that clip as well, but we need to talk about the debt ceiling because this is very important, especially for people who are on Social Security or who are receiving Medicare or in the military. This could have dire results if this goes through and you have politicians not moving forward with raising the debt ceiling. So that's what we're going to focus on today. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell notification, and then click all. By clicking all, you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. We do daily videos here, so by clicking the bell notification and clicking all, you should be getting updated every day. Okay, so let's back up first and talk a little bit about the debt ceiling. Why does this need to happen? Basically, we've already spent money, okay, over the last few years, the last couple of years, let's talk about. We've spent money, and now we need to raise a debt ceiling in order to pay those bills. So the money is already spent. The bills have already gone through. They've already been approved, and now we just need to raise that debt ceiling, basically pay off our credit card. That's what needs to happen. And so right now, you have Speaker McCarthy and the White House kind of going back and forth, where the White House is saying, look, we're not negotiating this. These bills are already there. They're coming. We need to pay the bills. We don't need to negotiate right now. We need to pay the bills. Whereas the Speaker McCarthy, is saying, no, let's negotiate. Let's not let this happen again. And so let's talk about it and then try to avoid it from happening again. Avoid having to raise a debt ceiling again. Because basically, the way our federal government works is we take in money, but we spend more than we take in. And that is a problem. However, we need to take care of the money that's already been spent before we can start addressing, okay, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And the reality is both Democrats and Republicans spend money. They both spend money about the same when it comes down to it. And so in the Trump administration, he spent $8 trillion. I won't say he, but during that administration, they spent $8 trillion. Right now, we're on pace to at least hit $8 trillion, or we might even go a little bit higher. And a lot of this has to do with the pandemic, both during the Trump administration as well as the Biden administration. And so that conversation needs to happen. But right now, we need to pay our bills, because if we default and don't pay our bills, our credit rating across the world is going to be impacted, which means that we'll end up having to pay more. Because what happens if you have a credit card and you don't pay it off, and they give you the late fees, and then they might hike up your interest rate and all that. So you end up paying more in the long run. So we might as well take care of this now and not wait, because if we wait, things are going to get worse. We're looking at the stock market now. The stock market is starting to see this whole situation. And if the stock market really suffers from this, that means 401ks suffer. That means everyone is going to be in a situation where they're going to be calling on Congress to go ahead and raise the debt ceiling. So you might as well do it now and not try to argue back and forth. You can have the discussion about balancing a budget. That's fine. But you need to take care of your bills before you start talking about balancing the government. And then I'm going to talk too a little bit in the end. I want to talk a little bit about Speaker McCarthy, because he now has the power to do what he is talking about negotiating. He has the power to do that, and we'll talk about that. But first, let's go ahead. I want to show you this letter. Now, this is from Treasury Secretary Yellen, and this is to the Honorable Kevin McCarthy, Speaker. And I'm just going to read the top portion of this, and we'll talk a little bit about it. And then at the bottom, there's one other section that I want to show you guys as well. Public Law 117-73 increased the statutory debt limit to approximately $31.381 trillion in December 16th of 2021. As you know, the debt limit is the total amount of money that the United States government is authorized to borrow to meet its existing legal obligations. Existing legal obligations. Very important for us to focus on what she's saying there. Including Social Security and Medicare benefits, military salaries, interest on the national debt, tax refunds, and other payments. So she pretty much went through everything. I mean, when you look at it, tax refunds, people are going to be anticipating that in a couple of months. When it comes to Social Security, when it comes to Medicare, it can affect those. They need to pay those bills. And when it comes to military salaries, it can affect that as well. And then it says other payments. So this needs to get done. And this is the reason why they need to raise the debt ceiling. And so that's what she's saying there. Now, she goes on to say, I am writing to inform you that beginning on Thursday, January 19th, 2023, the outstanding debt of the United States is projected to reach the statutory limit. Once the limit is reached, Treasury will need to take certain extraordinary measures to prevent the United States from defaulting on its obligations. Now, she goes on to talk about some of these extraordinary measures that need to take place. And basically, they need to cash in on investments and stop investing more and stuff like that. So that's what she's talking about. Now, this is a temporary fix. It would be much like, let's say you need to pay your credit card bills and you don't have the money to pay your credit card bills. And so you start selling some of the things that you have in order to pay those bills. But eventually you'll come to a point where you can't sell anything anymore. You can't cash things in anymore. And then you're going to need to do something else. And so that's what she basically says. We can do this right now. We can manage until around June. But at that point, something is going to need to give, or we're going to be in a situation where we're going to default. And so that's what she's talking about here. Now, she also goes on to say, and let's see if I can find it here, increasing or suspending the debt limit does not authorize new spending commitments or cost taxpayers money. So basically, she's saying by doing this, by raising the debt ceiling, it's not going to cost any additional money. It's not for new funding. It's basically to pay the bills that have already been passed. Okay, so pay for those bills. That's basically what she's saying there. And so let's hear, I want to go ahead and take a listen to Speaker McCarthy. He responds to this, and we're going to talk a little bit about what he says in his response. So let's go ahead and play his clip. Here we go.
The clean debt ceiling off the table?
Well, I don't see why you would continue the past behavior. I would think, for one standpoint, if you've just talked the question, is a clean debt ceiling? Well, would that mean we wouldn't do any approps bills and we just do an omni, that we wouldn't even do a budget? Yeah, that's totally off the table. We've got to change.
Just raising the debt ceiling without any conditions.
Well, no, I mean, well, I don't know if you have any children, but if you had a child and you gave them a credit card and they kept raising it and they hit the limit, so you just raised it again, clean increase, and again and again, would you just keep doing that, or would you change the behavior?
Now, this is very interesting because he's using the analogy of a child, but that analogy that he's using, he's basically saying that Congress, including him, they're children. They don't know how to spend money, or they don't know how to manage spending money. And so very interesting that he's using that analogy. The problem is them. That's the problem. And so we'll have to see how this moves forward. But one key aspect that he's missing, and I'll play the rest of the clip and then we'll talk about the key aspect that he's missing.
6 months away, why wouldn't we sit down now and change this behavior? That we would put ourselves on a more fiscally strong position. It would make the future generation, make our nation stronger, make the economics and stronger for this country. I think that's why we should sit down, and I would welcome. It's the first conversation I had with the president of winning speaker, the things I wanted to sit down and talk with him about. Who wants to put the nation in some type of threat at the last minute of debt ceiling? Nobody wants to do that. That's why we're asking, let's change our behavior now. Let's sit down. He's the president. We're the majority in the House. The Democrats are the majority in the Senate. And let's, exactly the way the founders designed Congress to work, find the compromise and find the common sense compromise that puts us back onto a balanced budget that I believe every household, every state does this, every city, every county. Why would the Democrats sit back and say, just raise it with no discussion? Nobody else can do that, and I don't think the American people want that.
Is the focus just on the discretionary side or mandatory as well? Every county?
You've got to protect Medicare and Social Security, and the path that the Democrats are going, they're going to go bankrupt. So
Now, you guys know how I feel about this comment that he just made as far as Social Security and Medicare, they're going to go bankrupt. That is just not true. And he's saying the way that the Democrats are spending. And let's focus on Social Security and Medicare just for 1 second, because anytime a politician says this, I have to push back because they're not being honest with you. They know that they're talking about the trust fund. They're not talking about Social Security and Medicare as a whole, because Social Security and Medicare, they collect FICA money, they collect taxes. And when people are working, you're paying a tax into Social Security, you're paying a tax into Medicare. The money that you're paying now is going to help the people who are receiving benefits currently. So that's not going to run out. As long as we have people in the workforce, that money will be collected. So the program will not go bankrupt. When we're talking about the trust fund, right now what they're doing is they're taking money from the trust fund because they don't have enough money that's coming in, people working, they don't have enough of that money that's coming in order to pay out at 100% when it comes to the benefits. And so he's talking about the trust fund will go bankrupt. He's not talking about Social Security as a whole, but they don't say that. And the reason why this is dangerous is because when you have people who are not on Social Security right now, or not receiving Medicare, you have people like that are working and they're thinking, well, if it's going to go bankrupt, why am I paying into this system? We need to change this system. We need to privatize it. We need to do something else. That's when they start getting those different ideas, because they don't understand that Social Security will still be around. Although if the trust fund runs out of money, you're looking at a decrease of about 23%. But that doesn't mean it's going bankrupt. It will still be there. They do need to reform Social Security, but it's not going bankrupt. And when politicians come out and say this stuff and the people start hearing this, they're going to think it's going bankrupt. So I don't want to pay anything into it. And then when the argument starts to come where, okay, why don't we look at FICA? Can we raise that incrementally, just a small amount, raise that percentage that you're paying on your paycheck? People will start saying, well, it's going bankrupt. Why am I going to pay even more, pay a little extra? And so that's where we need to really come to. Politicians need to stop saying this because they're not being honest, and they know this. And if they don't know it, they shouldn't be in Congress.
The thing I look at is, let's sit down and find a place that we can protect Medicare and Social Security for the future generations. Let's put our house in order in how we're going to spend, and let's make the investments we need to make America stronger.
Okay, so that was Speaker McCarthy talking about the debt ceiling. Now, the problem with this, and the problem that I have with this is, first off, if you have a credit card that's due, let's say that the bill is due, do you wait or do you actually pay it? Do you say, you know what, I'm going to sit down with my kid and we're going to have a discussion about how to spend money and how to manage money? Do you do all that talk, or do you actually pay the bill and then you have that discussion? Or you can have the discussion while you're paying the bill, but you make sure you pay the bill. And so basically what Speaker McCarthy wants to do right now is he wants to have that conversation. He wants to use, and this is the thing, he wants to use the debt ceiling, raising of the debt ceiling, as leverage to have this discussion and negotiate things on how to balance the budget. Now, when it comes to the speaker, what he is not telling you, something else that he's not telling you, is he holds the purse. Congress holds the purse. They hold the money. They determine how much money is spent. And so he can, from this point on, there's no negotiation needs to happen. The White House knows this, and that's why they're saying we're not even going to negotiate this, because we already know these bills need to be paid. If you don't want to pay the bills, then our country is going to suffer as a result of that. You know what needs to happen. Now, as far as moving forward, guess what? He has the power to hold up any future legislation. He has the power to hold up any future spending. And so he's being dishonest when he's talking about this whole situation of we need to sit down, we need to have this discussion, we need to do this, we need to do that, because the reality is he has that power now. It's basically just when he used that analogy of his kid with the credit card, he just took that credit card away from his kid. Now his kid can't use that credit card to spend any money. And so realistically, there's no discussion anymore. Because right now he holds the purse, he holds the money, and so that's what's very interesting as far as what he's saying now. He wants to meet with the president. He wants to meet with the majority leader of the Senate. I think these things should happen. They need to happen, but you still need to pay the bills. So if you want to use the debt ceiling as leverage, it's only going to hurt the American people. It's not going to hurt anyone else. And so we'll have to see what they do and how they move forward when it comes to this. But he holds the purse now. Let's see what he does with that purse, because things cost money. And that's the reality. And so when we're looking at these debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling, let's see what happens in a couple of years. Because if they're going to sit on their hands and not push forward any legislation, not pay any bills, then we're going to be in a real bad situation. And so this is very serious, very, very serious. And you saw he talked about Social Security and Medicare. It's good that he said that they're not going to be targeting those programs. At least he's saying that. But you do have other Congress people that are saying different. Other Congress people are saying, no, we want to do this, we want to do that. He's a speaker right now, but guess what? You only need one Republican to challenge his speakership, and he's gone. And so then they'll have another vote. And so when it comes down to this whole situation, you have some people, some Republicans, that want to make cuts to Social Security. They can use the debt ceiling as leverage to do that, and we might see that in the future. Because if we weren't going to see them use the debt ceiling as leverage, they would have raised the debt ceiling already. They can easily do it. And today would be the perfect day to do it, because today we're looking at the situation where the Treasury Secretary has already indicated, look, now we're having to do these extraordinary measures in order to avoid default. And so the sooner you raise the debt ceiling, the better, because we're going into our investments now to try to pay our bills. And so we're going to have to follow it, see where it goes. Make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell notification. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, make sure you post them down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.